What is up, guys? My name is Iceberg of Iceberg's Gaming here, bringing you a brand new Borderlands tips, tricks, overview, and how-to video. Today I'm going to be talking about relics in Borderlands 2. I'm going to be saying what kind of relics there are, what kind of effects they are, how you get them, how much they're worth, pretty much every sort of small detail you could think about. So if that sounds interesting to you, please stick around. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for sticking around. I am very sorry about this intro. I'm trying to get it changed as soon as possible, but my skills in Cinema 4D aren't very good, so I'm just trying to plug away, get that intro done as soon as possible. But anyway, that is not the subject of this video. The subject of this video is the Borderlands 2 relics. Now you'll notice these relics right off the bat. You'll get them very early on in the game. You'll be able to access them by clicking the back button on your menu and scrolling over to your your backpack, that kind of area. You'll have 4 slots. The bottom right hand slot will be where your relic resides. If you pre-ordered this game, you already have a relic in your inventory. You might even already have it equipped. That is the Vault Hunter relic, I believe. What this does, it increases your rare loot drops by 5%. It's a very cool relic. It can only be obtained if you were in the Premier Club of Borderlands 2. If you weren't, no big deal. It's really not that useful a relic. It's just kind of a cool memento to have. But we're not just going to be talking about that relic. We're going to be talking about all of the relics in Borderlands 2. And I'm going to be going over all of their effects, positive and negative, where you're going to find them, and so much more. So let's get into it. So first, let's start with what kind of relics are there. Well, there's a few. So overall, there are a total of 10 types of relics, and that is not including the legendaries and very odd relics that I'll talk about at the very end of this video. They all have very unique names, so I'm going to have a list on the page, probably right about now, about the names and what they do, so you can kind of follow along as I give you the down low. So the first step is Vitality, and this increases your health statistics. That could be increase your base health by 12%, increase it by 3%. These relics are going to vary, but if it has the name Vitality, its main job is to boost your health. Then we move down to Stockpile, and Stockpile is going to increase your ammo capacity for different weapon types. So you might have a submachine gun that you don't have very much ammo for, but if you find this relic on the ground that increases submachine gun ammo by say 10%, you will be able to carry 10% more SMG ammo. This can be very useful in this game because I noticed that the storage upgrades really aren't that high, especially for guns like sniper rifles and shotguns. For me personally, most sniper rifles I have are like automatics, and I think it's like capped at like 94 bullets, something like that. That just really isn't enough. So if you can find one of these Stockpile relics and equip it, and it happens to work for sniper rifles, you can really increase your ammo capacity without having to buy storage upgrades and going above and beyond what you can buy at Crazy Earl's little Iridium shop there. Moving on down the list to Protection. Protection enhances your shield capabilities. There really isn't much for me to say to this. You can get a lot of perks down skill trees, I believe for Maya the Sire, that increase your shield capabilities, but if you're not the Sire, then this is definitely a great way to go. Protection is a decent relic. It increases your shield capacity. So what that means is it might increase it by 13%. So if your shield was at 100 normally, it would go up to 113, which isn't that big of a difference. However, if you have a really bad shield at the time, this sort of relic can give you a boost to kind of keep you alive a little bit longer in those fights. Next, we move on to Strength. Now, Strength is a very unique relic, and that increases your melee damage. Now, melee damage for me in this game really isn't that big of a deal because I don't play as a melee character. I do have one account where I play as Zero, which he's much more of a melee character, but all my other characters I don't melee at all. So I really don't recommend using this relic unless you're Zero. If you are Zero, then this is a great relic to have, because on top of your already amazing melee perk skill tree, you can increase that even more with this Strength relic. So let's move on to Resistance. We're starting to get more into the complex relics, kind of the not so cut and dry as increases your melee damage. So here's how Resistance works. When you pick up the relic, it is going to say what it resists. So it might resist corrosive damage, it might resist shock, it might resist fire, etc. So depending on what this is, anyone who attacks you with that element is going to be substantially weakened. Now keep in mind, this only decreases the incoming damage and not your outgoing damage. So don't confuse this with If it says resistance to fire, that does not mean your fire damage is going to do more or less. It's only when the damage comes into you as fire. Now, something that you want to note, in this game, there really aren't that many enemies that do fire damage, corrosive damage, shock damage, and slag damage. They're kind of few and far between. However, I have noticed that most of the time, it is shock damage. And shock damage is the biggest hurdle in my personal gameplay in Borderlands 2, because I put a lot of effort into my shields. I put a lot of points into my shields. My shields are very high. So whenever a shock enemy starts to try to take me down, as soon as my shields go down, I am very weak, because I have very little health, because I use those turtle shields. So resistance is a great relic if you happen to get a shock one. So if you do this, then your shield is going to be pretty much invincible. So I think that about concludes it for resistance. Let's move on to tenacity. Now, tenacity is, in my opinion, one of the coolest relics out there. It is going to buff your second wind capabilities. Now, when I say buff, what does that mean? Well, it can mean a few things. It can mean that you last longer. It can mean that the revive time is quicker. It can mean that someone else reviving you is quicker, you reviving someone else is quicker. Basically, if you end up going down and you have this relic on, you're going to be able to increase your second wind capabilities to a huge extent. Sometimes it can be a few seconds, and I think we all know in Borderlands 2, sometimes just a few seconds is all you need to take out that enemy and get back up. So let's keep moving. Let's go to proficiency. Now, proficiency again is another very cool relic in Borderlands 2. This is going to increase your action skill cooldown rate. So what this means is if you're that siren and you have that phase lock ability, very cool ability, I love it to death. However, it's a bit of a pain when the ability is trying to recharge. You'll notice that when the ability is trying to recharge, you won't be able to use it, you kind of get in awkward situations, and that cooldown is really the bane of any character's existence. If you can't use your special ability, you're no longer that powerhouse that you used to be. So with the proficiency relic, you can decrease that cooldown rate and ultimately use your ability more. This is great for pretty much any of the classes. It's not going to favor any class specifically. It's going to be great for all of them. You can use your deception skill faster, your gunzerker, you know, that two guns akimbo thing faster. So overall, proficiency is a great relic. Highly recommend it. So we're going to move on to elemental and aggression. I'm going to pair them both because they're kind of the same. Now, elemental and aggression, like I said, I'm pairing them up because they're kind of the same. Elemental is going to increase your specific damage with one element. So this is the complete opposite of the resistance thing I was talking about earlier. Resistance is, once again, that is the damage coming in is reduced. However, elemental, an elemental relic, is going to increase the elemental damage going out. So if you have, say, a corrosive one and you're using a corrosive shotgun, that corrosive shotgun is going to do a lot more damage. Now this goes hand in hand with the aggression relic. The aggression relic works for a specific weapon type. So it doesn't work with the element, but the weapon type. So that means you have a shotgun, SMG, sniper. This relic might work for the sniper, meaning the snipers do more damage. So that has nothing to do with elements. However, it has to do with the individual gun. So you can have a sniper with corrosive, a sniper with fire, and a sniper with shock. Or if it has the aggression relic on, for snipers, that means that your snipers, all three of them, regardless of what kind of elemental damage they have on them, are going to do more damage. And finally, we're going to move on to the allegiance. It's not spelled like allegiance, but that's just what I'm going to call it. I'm going to call it the allegiance relic type. Now what this does, this makes specific manufacturers' products enhanced. So Allegiance is one of those relics that is very interesting, it's a little unique, and it's a little complex as well. So there's a whole bunch of weapons manufacturers in Borderlands 2, such as Malawan and Torque. So with this, what you're going to be able to do is, if you have a Malawan relic, this is going to make all Malawan weapons X. Meaning that maybe they're all going to be stronger, maybe they'll all have more elemental damage, it can be anything. It's a very broad relic type, and it really depends on which one you get, if it's going to be good or not. Alright guys, there's so much information about relics, I can't fit it all into one video. So this is going to be part 1 of a 2, possibly even 3-part mini-series. In the following series, I'm going to be talking more about the kind of the hidden, the very rare relics that don't fall into any of these broad categories. I'm also going to be talking about some strategies, some tips and tricks, and how to use these relics to their best ability and more stuff like that. So if that sounds interesting to you, click that subscribe button right up top to be alerted as soon as that comes out. If you enjoyed this video, please leave me a comment saying so, or maybe even click that like button. If you have any questions, concerns, comments for me, please leave those down below as well. I will be happy to respond to them in a timely manner. I think it's going to about do it, guys. Stick around for part 2 in the next coming days, and have a great day.